This situation has escalated yet again in Canada. It seems like I say this every day, and if not every day, every other day, since I took yesterday off. I was too busy to record anything. Boy, Doug Ford's ultimatum to the protesters: hey, get out of town, or I'm going to put you all in prison for a year, fine you $100,000, and take away your license forever. That didn't work. It doesn't seem like the crowds have dispersed, and the police have had to step up enforcement, and they've sent in the tanks. Literally, Trudeau has sent in the tanks to break up the protest movement against him. Canada has gone full Eastern Bloc. Justin Castro he's doing his best to live up to his father's name. But I have to say, I don't think that Fidel Castro himself ever had to resort to this extreme of measures in his time reigning as the Cuban dictator. He did not. I don't think he had to send in the tanks like this to break up a mass uprising. Certainly, if this were going on in Cuba, what's been going on in Canada, you would have all of the Cuban Americans in America, cheering on, oh, the revolution's here, it's arrived. You would have Marco Rubio all over TV saying, Castro's got to get out. He needs to, fly into exile in Russia or something. And when he started to send in the tanks to break people up, to get them off the streets, they would cry, oh my gosh, this is a human rights violation city. Castro needs to be tried at The Hague. But when his son does it in Canada, his alleged son, I'm going to say that, I don't want to be accused of misinformation, his alleged son, Justin Trudeau, who looks nothing like Pierre Trudeau, when he does it, it's just crickets from, most in Washington. I mean, there are a couple people, I guess Rand Paul now is coming out. He's pretty strongly in support of the truckers. But most of these guys, the strong anti-communist guys, the warmonger class, they're saying, wait. We're not trying to do regime change in Canada. We're not interested in that. We want to do regime change in all these other countries that don't play ball with the CIA. Canada, they're good. They're part of Five Eyes. They can do whatever they want to their civilians. And to be fair, even though they are sending in the tanks, you do have guys with machine guns, poking their heads out of the MRAPs, driving through the streets. You do have snipers on rooftops, apparently. They have not, as of yet, shot and killed anyone. So I'll give them that. This isn't Tiananmen Square yet. And frankly, even though things are escalating very, very quickly, I would be shocked if things did get to the point of Tiananmen Square where you have people being shot and killed. Because the imagery of that is something that very few regimes are able to overcome. China still wears that as an albatross around their neck. But the only reason they were able to get through it is because, they were able to engage in such extreme censorship, and it's understood in China that, the party has a certain level of dictatorial control. Whereas, up until 2 years ago, that was not understood in Canada. I mean, hell, the current ruling party, the Liberal Party, was almost dead before Justin Trudeau revived it. But of course, this is not a partisan matter in Canada. The entire political class is aligned against the Freedom Convoy. It is Doug Ford's troops, I believe, who are the ones leading the charge in many ways, since Ontario is the center. It has Ottawa, the capital, as well as Toronto, which I believe is the largest city in Canada, both becoming increasingly aggressive against these people, trying to invent new laws out of thin air to essentially outlaw protesting. But to borrow and modify a phrase from Andrew Jackson, Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau have essentially made their rulings. Now let's see them enforce them. Because the harder that they're cracking down on, every time they crack down on a protest in one location, the convoy people will amass at a different location. Canada's a big place. It's the largest landmass, second largest, country by area. in the world after Russia. It's very hard to crack down on people everywhere across the entire country. So sure, when they started cracking down in Ottawa, what happened? They went to the Ambassador Bridge. They went to Couts. They are now going to the Pacific Highway in British Columbia. Because remember, what were they doing when they went to Ottawa? They wanted to go directly to the politicians. They wanted to park out in front of Parliament. They wanted to honk their horns and just make life difficult for politicians. And the government said, no, you can't do that. That's too extreme. You're not allowed to honk your horns. You're not allowed. You're blocking traffic. You're disrupting the economy by blocking the street in front of Parliament, as if that's some major artery of commerce. And so you know what people did? They said, okay, then I guess we just need to. You're accusing us of blocking the economy and blockading things and barricading major economic arteries. Okay, we'll go to the number one border crossing in North America, the number one U.S.-Canada border crossing, the Ambassador Bridge, and we'll shut it down for a week. We'll just drive there and we'll park our trucks, and that'll be that. And of course, this was after the Couts blockade, which started it. And Couts, doesn't appear to be a huge border crossing. It's a pretty small town. Apparently, there's more protesters there than there are actual residents of the town. It borders with Montana. I don't think a lot of people, relatively speaking, when you compare the amount of people who are crossing the border, like from the Vancouver area into Washington, or the Toronto area into the U.S., or the Windsor, right across from Detroit. I don't think that the border between Alberta and Montana is comparable. But in principle, they set the precedent that, okay, I guess we'll start blocking borders because we need to be more extreme to make our voices heard. And what you keep seeing is that the more they crack down on each one of these individual locations, people will amass in different areas. As they crack down on Couts, what happened? People amassed at the blockade set up by the RCMP at Milk River. And so this is spreading. By trying to disrupt the protests at the centralized location in Ottawa, what they're doing is they're making them spread everywhere else. They're shattering them and breaking it into a million pieces, and those pieces are being scattered across the country, and people all of a sudden are saying, hey, we want to protest in our local town to show support for the folks in Ottawa. And we can't go to Ottawa because they're blocking us there, or we can't go to Couts. So we're gonna go to Windsor. We're gonna go. They're blocking, I guess, the other bridges which cross the Detroit River too, not just the Ambassador Bridge now. Folks out west said, okay, well, let's block the Pacific Highway. Anything to make their voices heard, because these are acts of desperation. These are not people who are want to destroy the economy, obviously. It's an absurd claim. The people who have destroyed the economy over the last 10 years, 2 years, and shut things down for a lot more than a week. Remember, it was supposed to be 2 weeks to slow the spread? How about 2 weeks to flatten tyranny? 2 weeks to slow the spread didn't work, so they locked down the economy in Canada for 2 years. So maybe we should just try 2 weeks to flatten tyranny and see if that is any more fruitful. Yesterday really was, it was huge for events across the world, not just in Canada. We also saw in France, in Paris, there are people, a copycat protest. Of course, the police, per usual in France, were beating people. There was lots of unrest, but the French know how to do this. They're much more experienced at it than the Canadians. So, it's funny seeing the headline, police clash in Paris with, Canada-style protesters. We also saw in, I can never say it right. Is it Canberra or Canberra, whatever you say, at the capital of Australia? There are people who marched there, sat down on, I guess, their equivalent to the National Mall, like what we have here in Washington. Big crowd, lots of people. You can never really take those crowd estimates well. They always vary wildly. But you can look at the pictures for yourself and get a feel for how many people were there. And I don't see less people at these protests when they get interviewed. I don't see less people or more people coming out and saying, we've been doing this for a while, but I'm just going to give up now because I think we've made our point. I've not heard anybody say that. They all say, this is outrageous, they're trying to silence us, and we will ensure that our voices are heard. We will make ourselves heard. And we're going to stay here for as long as it takes. And there are people willing to stay in an increasing number of places for as long as it takes. I mean, it was beautiful to see in British Columbia at the Pacific Highway border crossing. Within a matter of minutes, it seemed, I think it was, I saw the time lapse. People just moved in, they parked their cars, they unloaded stuff out, they were setting up grills, they were going to start barbecuing, making food, campers, they had their generators running. It was great. It was like a tailgating party. Speaking of which, the feds here in America were telling us, oh, there could be a trucker convoy that shuts down the Super Bowl today. I don't buy that. I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to look. But I would be surprised if that ends up happening. And if it does, I would be surprised if it's organic, because, you don't normally hear organic protests being forecast by the federal government. Normally, those are AstroTurf protests, whether they're happening in America or not. So overall, it was an excellent weekend. I didn't have time to watch Vivas on the Street yesterday. I was busy all day, so could not sit down and watch Viva walk around Ottawa. But, Ottawa's not the center of the action necessarily anymore. I mean, you got lots of places. You got Windsor heating up. You've got wherever that crossing is in BC. Couts is still going strong. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.